Serious. Redditors who like to walk at night, what's the creepiest thing you have ever experienced? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. A guy walking down the road wearing a wetsuit, no shoes, he had goggles on, and he was watching something on his phone. There is no water nearby he could have been swimming in. It was about 2 a.m. I was once walking in the park really late at night, and some drunk guy ended up trying to chase me around while crab walking. It scared me at the time, but now looking back at it, I just think it was super weird. I was followed by a white van twice. I was heading to my friend's house when I noticed a white van that was driving behind me slowly. I thought it was odd, so when I turned the corner, I sprinted to the main road. A week later in the same spot, that white van started following me again before parking, and a dude got out and started following me, laughing and shaking his keys. I turned the same corner and sprinted to the main road. That was the last time I went that route. I cannot confirm whether it was the same white van. It was. But 2 years before, I was skateboarding around that area with my friend when a van tried to run us over. Pretty effed. I got followed by several possums once. I know, it sounds lame, but when you end up going about half a mile and every time you look back there's these beady little reflecting eyes staring at you, and you can see them freeze, it makes your skin crawl. Okinawa here, we have giant Japanese bats that'll follow you. At first, it was absolutely terrifying, but when you realize they mean no harm, they actually are super adorable. They can have 5-foot wingspans. TLDR. Giant bats who are precious babies. I was already creeped out from reading a Reddit thread of creepy stories when I decided to walk to my car and go get some tacos. I had to park a few blocks away from my place. I thought I was just creeped out from the stories, but I had a bad feeling, and out of nowhere I felt I needed to run into a stranger's yard. Sure enough, a car had been following me, and the driver rolled down the window to tell, "Vulnerable young women shouldn't be walking alone at night. There are scary people out here." At this point, I'm at the front door area of this random house, just screaming at him to F off, and he drove away. That car snuck up so easily, so I'm glad I had a feeling about it. A few years back, I was stoned and walking back from a friend's house. Suddenly, I saw all these lights floating up through a heavily wooded area. I nearly shit my pants, thinking it was an alien invasion or something. I called my buddy in a panic, describing the lights, and he burst out laughing. My stupid ass had never seen or heard of Chinese lanterns. A few years ago, I was staying in Chicago with my cousin while playing in a poker tournament in Hammond, Indiana. I made a pretty deep run in the event I was playing in, and play didn't stop until midnight. I took the bus from the casino back into the city, which dropped me off in Chinatown. I had to take a couple bus transfers to get back to my cousin's apartment. Between tiredness, adrenaline rush of the poker tournament, and not being familiar with the city, I got a bit lost and ended up being 10 blocks from where I should have been. I pulled out my phone and realized my mistake and decided to walk the rest of the way. That is when an attractive 20-something-year-old female passes me at an intersection looking a bit nervous, with 2 drunk guys in tow catcalling. I loudly said, "Hey," first female name I could think of, "do you know these guys?" while briskly catching up to the girl. The guys immediately broke off, and I quietly said, "I noticed these 2 guys following you, just making sure you're okay." Her voice was trembling while she said, "Thank you." Turns out she almost is not from the city, got separated from her friends, and her phone was dead. These 2 weirdos had been following her for a while. I walked with her for a few blocks, and we ducked into a diner. I let her use my phone to get a hold of one of her friends. Poor girl was damn near in tears. Her friends finally came, and that was the end of it. But damn, I've never seen someone so blatantly stalked or preyed upon. More scary than creepy. When I was about 14, I was walking home from some friends around midnight, so it was completely dark. I'd turned down rides home because I like to walk at night. As I'm walking down a small street, I see about 10 boys coming out from this one house. I'd assume they were 18 plus years. I'm like, nope, and turn around pretending to have walked the wrong way, hoping they wouldn't notice me. They had. One of them starts shouting for me, "Hey, why are you turning? Come back." I can hear the others giggle a little. I ignore it and keep walking. Out of nowhere, they all start sprinting after me. "Now we're gonna fucking get you." I obviously start sprinting as well. "We're gonna fucking get you." They chased me for some blocks until they just got exhausted from running and then just gave up. But I didn't stop. I ran all the way home. At the time, I was pretty fit from training martial arts. I don't even want to know what would have happened if I was in bad shape and they caught me. Went to smoke at a local park because I couldn't sleep. I went and sat down at a circular bench with a wall behind me. I noticed some old dude walking a small dog sort of circling around me, taking different paths all the time, but then somehow coming back to the same point. Then some other old dude sat down a few meters from me and started asking what I was doing and what the time was. As soon as that happened, I saw the other dude standing at that point again, and I got chills and booked it. Told him what time it was and straight up left. Later, heard it was sometimes used as a cruising zone. Well, I was at a train station around 10:30 p.m. and some guys were hanging out on the platform by the parking lot while I was in the middle between the tracks. They kept looking at me and I just got this vibe, you know? I was maybe 19 at the time. They were clearly in their 20s at least. I called my mom to pick me up. I was planning to walk home, and when she arrived, I had to go down the stairs, through the tunnel under the tracks, back up the stairs, then past these guys. One of them started following me into the parking lot, but stopped when he realized I was going towards a car. Overall, just creepy as hell. I'm female, and I was traveling in Germany with my mom, visiting my Oma. I like to watch trains, and Germany has a lot of them, so that's why I was at a train station. I wasn't supposed to be out that late, but one of the high-speed ones was coming by, so I decided to stay out longer than I should have. I'm honestly not sure what I would have done if I hadn't been able to call my mom to pick me up. Not creepy per se, but a bobcat. I live in the woods and I was terrified. He was big as F, about the size of a 40 to 50 pound dog, but lean and strong like a cat. He was a tiny lion. He was a bobcat. It's hard to imagine unless you've seen one in person. He didn't bother me though. I stopped in my tracks, kinda hunched down and lowered my stance. He stared me down for a while, then went on his way. I used to be an unemployed meth addict. I would be awake for days at a time, and usually only come out of my room at night. Honestly, I'd be the creepy person someone else would spot. Doing things that were actually pretty normal and explainable, except that I'd never get the chance to explain it. Yes, I was alternating between crawling around the yard and staring up at the sky, and sometimes just standing completely still wearing only a towel. You see, I was looking for a joint that the wind had blown off the balcony because I wanted a blaze before I showered, but I was also stargazing, and also I was hallucinating. The sound of a woman or child screaming bloody murder deep in the woods on a pitch-black night. No flashlight could penetrate the dense brush. The screams came periodically over several minutes and seemed to move in the distant woods. This is a very secluded area with no houses around for a mile or so, and I was alone. I was sweating bullets, and my hands were shaking as I tried to see through the trees. I could hear rustling as something moved out there. At that point, I just bolted out of there all the way home, never looking back. Turned out to be a fox eating rabbits. Rabbits and foxes can both have a very eerie and human-like scream. Okay, this is my time to shine, fellas. So I go for a walk most nights around 10 p.m. for around an hour. On Friday nights, I'll bring a few cool brewskis, walk for maybe 2 or 3 hours towards town. To set the scene for you, it was about 12 a.m., and there's a park that's its own little island in the lake in the middle of town. The only way in and out is a long, skinny, man-made land bridge. I was walking around there, and on the way back I saw a car at the other end of the bridge. Okay, no biggie. I keep walking, and the car takes off, but there's a green-blue blinking LED where it was. That's cool, I keep walking. It's about 150 feet away at this point. The light stays where it is, and I keep going towards it, shining my phone in its direction, coughing, dragging my feet, etc., so I don't startle the mysterious light thing. As I get closer, about 40 feet, I hear movement and rustling sounds. At about 20 feet, I see it's a man hunched over in the middle of the street over one of those shiny thermal blankets. On the blanket, there was a small dead animal, and it looked like was getting ready to skin it. I get about 10 feet away, as far as I can while still getting past, and he shoots straight up in a super panicked voice. He said, "Oh shit, hey buddy, we were just driving and there was this fox, and I just said something like, haha, yeah, okay, and kept going. Didn't see him anymore, but about 10 minutes later a cop pulled over beside me and asked if I seen a suspicious man and gave me a description. I told him I didn't get a good look at him, but I told him about the guy with the fox. He said that sounds pretty sketchy and went to go check it out. I don't go to that park anymore. TL, doctor, went to park, man skinning fox?" I was a teenager living in a small town. I was with a friend. It was about 2 a.m. We were facing a hill up ahead. I saw something moving toward the top. It appeared to be coming towards us on the sidewalk. As it got closer, it became illuminated by a dim streetlight. From a distance, it appeared to be very tall, around 7 feet if I had to guess. I couldn't see its feet. The way it was walking was more like a gliding, swaying motion. Slow, but it felt like it was faster than was comfortable at the same time. The weird part was that I couldn't see any features. It looked as though it was white, the way the street lamp hit it, but like white robes. Imagine a 7-foot-tall, thin thing dressed in a full burqa. I don't know how else to describe it. It looked like robes, the way the fabric swayed, and I could not see a face. I couldn't even see clearly defined arms or legs. It was just swaying and gliding down the hill on the sidewalk with no one else around. My friend and I exchanged some WTF between us and turned off the road very quickly toward my house. To this day, I have no clue what it was. I'm sure the explanation is very asinine, but I'll never forget it and the feeling of dread that washed over me seeing it. I was walking at night in San Francisco with another girl. We called the taxi because hailing one is absurdly difficult there, and I think people know that because a black unmarked car pulled up as we were sitting on the sidewalk. The driver rolled down his window and he was wearing sunglasses. He asked if we needed a taxi. We told him we had called one and he pushed for us to ride with him instead. Pass. I used to work nights. I got used to going to work after dark, and other than looking over your shoulders and avoiding dark areas, the only time I was truly terrified is when I heard a wolf howling in the woods in front of my building. The distance was literally across the street. We had a problem with wild animals back in the area I was living in, but this was the first time something this scary was close. This was no dog or fox. I walked quickly to work, praying hard that it was not following me. And when I was at the lights down the road, I saw a police car in the area where the wolf was. I guess someone heard it too and called emergency. The other time I was scared was when I was living in a haunted house. There was something evil in that house. You get the sense of deep fear inside of you, and my pets were always either growling or hiding somewhere shaking with fear. After we moved out, housing was hard to get in that town. There were 3 families that moved in and out in the span of less than a year. That area was sought after by tenants, but no one stayed in that house for very long. I had to walk home 4 miles on pitch-black, super rural northern Michigan dirt back roads, and 2 coyotes crossed the road like silent ghosts right in front of me, so I got a little nervous. I could always hear packs of them screaming together in the woods outside my bedroom window. I'd loved listening to them, but I knew when they got together there were a lot of them, so I did start feeling kinda sketchy. This was before we all had cell phones. And shortly after that, I hear this sudden, heavy-ass crunching and crashing coming at me in the woods, across the road like 10 feet away. I blindly grab a big stick and just wait for the attack. It was somebody's cow. She was a human in the dark and she got excited. She walked with me for most of my way home before she eventually realized something wasn't right, or maybe that I didn't have food, and she turned back around. But I wasn't scared at all walking in the dark with that big lady thumping around next to me. I do a lot of backpacking, and aside from the usual creepy noises, which I've come to learn are almost always animal, it's amazing the range of sounds they can make. Not much happens at night that freaks me out, but there were 2 times that I got a little creeped out. The first one was when I was fairly new, and on my first long overnight. I'd planned to hike 16 miles each day, but the first day turned to shit pretty quick. The route was tougher and more poorly marked than I thought it'd be, and I missed my first campsite. So I ended up hiking 4 miles more than I planned before I hit the next campsite. Also, the last mile or 2 were in the dark, which I'd never done before on a bad trail. So even before the creepy part, I was tired, hungry, on edge, and just wanted to get to the camp to put the day behind me. So when I finally see the wood shelters of the campsite in my headlamp, I'm elated. But my elation quickly turns to unease when I see graffiti all over the shelters and broken glass everywhere. Evidently, the site was frequently used by kids partying, which was not the wilderness experience I was hoping for. Thankfully, it was winter, so no one was there, but it still creeped me out a bit. The second was even more creepy. This was a few years after the first one, and I was much more seasoned. I was out in the winter again, had hiked about 12 miles, and was settling into my warm bag to get some rest. I was just getting a last drink of water before closing my eyes when I saw a light shining on the woods across the pond from where I camped. The light tracked over the woodline, then across the pond, then directly onto my tent, then suddenly turned off completely. I was a little creeped out, but figured it was another brave winter backpacker looking for a spot to camp. When they saw my tent, I figured they politely shut off their flashlight. I didn't hear any footsteps, so I figured they moved on and I went back to falling asleep. Just as I was about to drift off, I hear a car approach, pause, and then come down the gravel drive to where I'm camped. Now, to completely set the scene and explain how creeped out I was, there's a few details I should mention. 1. It was the dead of winter in the Midwest, so it was pretty damn cold, 10 degrees Fahrenheit I think, not weather that brings most folks outdoors. And 2. The campsite was down a long park road, then down that gravel drive, then around a corner behind thick woods. It wasn't visible from the road, so you had to know it was there. If it was people looking for a makeout spot, there were plenty of other more easily accessible places real close by. So, that said, I was extremely creeped out by this vehicle coming my way. I look out from under my tarp tent and see the headlights pan over the woodline, then turn directly toward my tent as it rounds the corner. I've got my knife in hand at this point and call out, "Hey, what's up?" No response. After a few tense moments, the vehicle backs out and goes back the way it came. Spooked, I call 911 and thankfully had service. I tell them what happened, and the operator explained that officers were in the area looking for someone. Won't give me any more details, even when I ask if I'm in danger. Even when I tell them I'm a 911 dispatcher and have some wilderness first responder training. Still no idea what the full story was, but needless to say, I didn't sleep too well that night.